Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So welcome back to the Bhakti-vaibhava Course. Today we will an overview of the several questions that was discussed in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and also we will try to see an overview of what is it being spoken in the first canto. If you see the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, we know that it has been very important questions that's being posed, and also the relevant answers. So that's the whole Bhagavatam is arranged like that. The questions and answers, perfect questions, perfect answers, we could say, is available in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So before we get into chapter wise, so we will offer our prayers to the spiritual master and to the Parampara and to the Supreme Lord, and then we will start discussing the various questions, and so that we can recollect and then see how the several questions were asked and how the answers were given, and how from where the second canto begins with the answer to the questions that is raised, that is an important question that was raised in the first canto. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vaibhava Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So right in the chapter 1, we will begin with some of the questions that is being dealt. So do we have any questions in the chapter 1? Can you think about it? Yeah, why are you just thinking so much?
6 questions.
Yeah, there are six important questions that was asked by the sages in the Naimisharanya. They posed these questions to whom? Under the leadership of Shaunaka, they posed these questions to Sutta Goswami, and so those 6 questions form the basis of the Bhagavatam, and then those questions, we can see some of the answers for those questions is elaborated throughout the Bhagavatam. So just to recollect, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 9, what is the absolute and ultimate good for the people in general? This is the first question. Canto 1, Chapter 1, Verse 11, what is the essence of all the scriptures? I just want to tell you that we will just go through the important questions, and here and there I will just touch with, we already know the answers, we already done it, but we will also touch base with the answers which is available in the subsequent chapters. So there will be a lot of reading I will be doing, but this will help you to recollect how several questions were answered and what we have seen, so that we will get a gist of the questions and the answers that we dealt in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto. So we know the answers, that is, after describing the devotional service of Sri Krishna was the essence of the scriptures, Sutta explains that the ultimate benefit for people in general is to become free from material bondage and develop love of God through devotional service offered only to Krishna or his plenary parts. So we remember the famous verses of Savipum Samparo Dharmo, which gives the answer for this question. And the second question, what is the essence of all the scriptures? So we can see the answer for this throughout the second chapter. Like Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead and establishing one's lost relationship with him in love and service through devotional service is proclaimed as sum and substance of the Vedic literatures. Now, many of the answers here are summarized answers from other verses which we have clubbed here. Question 3. Tell why Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appeared. This is Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 12. And there are several places the answers are given for this question. In the first canto, second chapter, 34th verse, to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. In addition, in other chapters of the Bhagavatam also it is answered. Canto 1, chapter 8, text 35. Canto 9, chapter 4, text 61. Canto 10, chapter 8, text 48 to 50. And Canto 10, chapter 33, verse 37. Well, you can get into the details of it later, but this was discussed during those sessions. Question 4. Describe the activities of the incarnations of the Lord. Canto 1, chapter 1, text 17. The Lord's incarnations are described in chapter 3 of the first canto. More detailed descriptions of the incarnations are recounted throughout the remainder of the Bhagavatam. So we know there is a summary of the various incarnations that was discussed in the third chapter, and then Bhagavatam is a whole elaboration of the various avatars, that the various leelas that we see, and that is explained. Question 5. Tell us of the acts of Lord performs in relationship to creating the material world. So this question is answered in the Canto 1, chapter 2, text 30 to 33, wherein the Bhagavatam explains how Vasudeva creates the material substance and enters into as the Purusha incarnations. In addition, Cantos 3 and 4 relate the creation of the universe and its population by all species. Canto 3, so much discussion is there about the creation. Well, also in the second canto we will see also discussions about creation. Question 6. Where have religious principles gone after Krishna's disappearance from this planet? Suta Goswami answers this question in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 3, text 43. What is the verse? It's a very famous verse. Krishnesva dhamo pagate dharma jnanadibhi saha kalo nashta drisham yesha puranarko dhunoditaha. This Bhagavata Purana is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this. Okay. Now, so for 6 questions we have seen. Now the 7th question is discussed in the chapter 4. The chapter 4 of the Bhagavatam, the 7th question begins. Now 7th question has got parts, we will see about that. So this is asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Suta Goswami. O Suta Goswami, may you please relate the pious message of the Srimad Bhagavatam as spoken by Srila Shukadeva Goswami. Canto 1, chapter 4, text 2. Okay. Now, in different verses, you can see the questions being raised, and we have just identified it as different items here. Okay. When, where, and why was the Bhagavatam recited? In the text 3 of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavatam, this is raised. From where did Shukadeva's father, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, get the inspiration to compile the Bhagavatam? Item 3. After wandering about the earth like a naked madman, how was Shukadeva Goswami recognized as a great sage he actually was when he entered Hastinapura? Where the answer is given, anybody could recollect? For this question? 19th chapter, good. Yes, in the 19th chapter, the answer is discussed, wherein Shukadeva Goswami arrives and all the great rishis, Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, even all great personalities, they all stand up, even all the great demigods, everyone is stunned by his presence, and that is very elaborately discussed there. How did Emperor Parikshit meet Shukadeva Goswami? In the 8th verse, this question is raised. And why did wealthy and powerful Emperor Parikshit renounce his kingdom to fast to death on the bank of the Ganges? Okay. These are the questions from the verses 10 and 11. And then, Emperor Parikshit did not live to enjoy his wealth and power. He lived to give shelter to his subjects. So why did he give up his body, which was his shelter for others? This is again an interesting question. Why he's such a great personality, why he had to leave the body? And okay, so we will just in brief see the answers. Suta's answers to question 7, of course, carries on until the end of the Bhagavatam. Because these, when, where, and why was the Bhagavatam recited, and then other further delineations are explained throughout the Bhagavatam. The 6 specific items, though, are addressed in first canto. Item 1 is addressed from 1:4:14 to the end of the first canto. End of the first canto is, that's what we said, 1:19:40 in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:19:40, that Shukadeva's appearance and how he he himself, Shukadeva Goswami, he just overpowered is not the right word to use. He was self-effulgent, was so pure, was so knowledgeable, was a great Bhagavata who could come and then enlighten Parikshit Maharaj and speak the Bhagavatam. So, yeah, from where did Shukadeva's father, Krishna Dvaipayana and Vyasadeva, get the inspiration to compile the Bhagavatam? So, in which chapters these are discussed?
4, 5, 6.
Yeah, mostly, predominantly 5 and 6, we could see. The end of 4 and then 5 and 6, yeah. And as we said, regarding Vyasadeva's appearance, Shukadeva Goswami's appearance in the chapter 1, Canto 1930. And what was the item 4? How did Emperor Parikshit meet Shukadeva Goswami? Well, that is discussed in chapter 19. Chapter 19 has got quite some answers for those questions from the chapter 4. And then this particular question of why did wealthy and powerful Parikshit renounce his kingdom to fast to death on the bank of the Ganges? So, to answer this question, we have to refer from chapter 16 to chapter 19, because the whole background of why Parikshit, what happened to Parikshit, regarding the discussion between the cows and the bulls, and what on the advent of Kali, and what Parikshit had to do, and why the curse was imposed on him, was discussed in all the 3 chapters. Then the question, Emperor Parikshit did not live to enjoy his wealth and power. He lived to give shelter to his subjects. So why did he give up his body, which was a shelter for others? Well, that is a very clear discussion happens in the verses between 13 to 16 of the 19th chapter, where Parikshit Maharaj very clearly says that he wants to get purified. He clearly acknowledges it as the Lord's arrangement. The Lord, I'm attached. He says, I'm attached. I have to give up the material attachment, and there cannot be better event that could have taken place. He could have rebuked, he could have reversed the situation, but he did not. He took that in great spirit, and then he surrendered. So that's what is the discussion on that. And chapter 5. Now the next question. There were several questions that was raised by Narada Muni towards Vyasadeva to inspire Vyasadeva to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. After compiling the Mahabharata, full of all kinds of Vedic knowledge and presenting the philosophy of impersonal Brahman, are you satisfied by identifying the body and mind as objects of self-realization? So this was a question, first question that Narada Muni posed to Vyasadeva. So that he was saying that, indirectly was saying that you are in the bodily platform. You are not, still if you are not happy means, it shows that you have not transcended. Because Brahmabhuta Prasannatma, if someone is a Brahmabhuta Prasannatma, he will not have Shochati and Kankshati, isn't it? So that was the point. So question 9. In the question 9, we could also see that the question 8 has been answered. That we will see. Is asked by Vyasadeva to Narada Muni. In spite of these accomplishments you mentioned, I am not satisfied, and therefore asked you to find out the deficiency in me. So when Narada Muni raised the question, are you satisfied? He says that I am not satisfied by raising a question. I am not satisfied. So can you please find out what is the problem? Are you able to follow? I am just recapping. Nothing. I am not doing anything else. Just recapping whatever that we have done so far. Now, this will the answer for these questions is what is the solid verses where you remember all those powerful verses we saw right from the verses of Nayad Vachas Chitrapadam Hare Resho, and then Tadvag Visargo Janatanga Viplavo, then the famous verse of 3 verses. What are those 3 verses we established? Naishkarmyam. Naishkarmyam apyachyuta bhava varjitam. Then Tyaktva Swadharmam Sharanambujam Harer. Then the great verse of how the pure devotional service is always safe at any situation. All those glories Narada Muni is establishing to inspire Vyasadeva that this is the great thing that you can do is to compile this Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, we will just go through those answers so that we will recollect those. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam directly presents the pastimes and glories of the Lord, hearing the Bhagavatam from a pure devotee is the best method of removing our impurities and again reviving our devotional service to Krishna. Although we may be attracted to other literatures due to our impure conditioned desires, attentively studying the Bhagavatam will remove those desires. The Bhagavatam is therefore the most superior literature, superior to even the Vedic literatures which promote gradual purification and thereby confuse readers about life's ultimate goal. Okay, then now he's further establishing the point that what happens if you just take up your life, surrender yourself to the Bhagavatam. Is there any risk? On one hand, any gain outside of devotional service is doomed, and on the other hand, devotional gains are eternal. Advancing through devotional service is so perfect that even if a devotee falls, the Lord personally takes charge of rectifying him. These are from verses 17 to 19. For the living entity to regain his constitutional position of serving Krishna through devotional service, he must seek shelter of the Lord's representative, the bona fide spiritual master, and then under the spiritual master's direction, the disciple can purify his material attachments by using them to glorify the Lord. Verses 20 to 22. Now he's explaining further. Therefore, one who is determined to go back to Godhead must surrender to, take training from, and hear the Bhagavatam from a pure spiritual master who represents Krishna. One must serve such a spiritual master and, rejecting all desires for material happiness, use his material abilities and opulences in Krishna's service while cultivating a strong desire to serve Krishna in this spiritual world. No plan to remove our miseries other than taking shelter of the Lord in devotional service will succeed. We should become determined to purify our inclination to lord it over the material world by dovetailing our material tendencies in Krishna's service. You remember those verses where Narada Muni is emphasizing that karma, engage in activities. So that, but those activities will not bind you because those activities you are performing for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So series of verses he speaks. Thus, under the direction of a pure devotee, we can always remember Krishna and go back to Godhead. Then finally he concludes, rejecting as useless everything that doesn't bring us closer to Krishna, one should uncover his relationship with Krishna through offenselessly chanting transcendental sound vibrations like the Bhagavatam. Because all classes of men can become purified through the potency of transcendental sound vibrations, these vibrations should be widely broadcast. So in that, Prabhupada is also speaking about the chanting of the holy names of the Lord and also simultaneously giving oral reception to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the entire human race, which is now immersed in ignorance because of not aware of the transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness, people are struggling in the material world. So that Prabhupada establishes. So now we will go to the next question in the chapter 6. Question 10. Narada's advancement in Krishna consciousness. So Vyasadeva, being very much inspired by Narada Muni's talk, and because Narada Muni says that, okay, let me give myself as an example how this Bhagavatam is so pure and how it helps by giving oral reception, by serving the Bhagavatas, how one can get perfection. If you remember, Narada Muni also instructed how to get this transcendental knowledge, not by your own efforts, but by approaching a bona fide spiritual master, by approaching a bona fide devotee, pure devotee who is immersed in this Bhagavatam, by following the footsteps of the Bhagavatam. Okay, the question goes like this. What did you do after the departure of the sages who in your prior birth instructed you? Canto 1, chapter 6, text 2. Then the next verse, third verse. How did you pass that life after initiation? How did you attain your present body? Then the fourth, how are you able to remember your prior birth, which was in a previous day of Brahma? So now, I'm not going to discuss in detail the answers of this. I will leave that for you to contemplate. But in summary, we will just see. Okay, if you remember, Narada Muni, first of all, he gives the example of his own life as answer for this question. He met the Bhakti-Vedantas, he served them, he surrendered to them, and he took their remnants. And by that, what happened to him? He got transformation in his heart. And then after leaving them, he raised himself to almost he was in the level of Bhav. And then, he had audience with the Supreme Lord. And then the Lord left him so that that separation will increase his eagerness. And then Narada Muni further, again he gave up that body, and then he just got into another body, and then he became fully Krishna conscious, and he started to preach this message of the Bhagavatam. So that is what is being, that example Narada Muni is sharing with Vyasadeva, so that will give inspiration to the people that by serving the Bhagavatas, by giving oral reception to the Bhagavatam, one will be able to make tremendous progress. In fact, that is the perfect process. Okay. Question 7, chapter 7, questions 11 and 12. After Narada departed the ashram of Vyasadeva, what did Vyasa do? So question 12. If Shukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization as an Atma Rama, then why did he undergo the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam? This is again an interesting question. See, these are very nice questions posed by the sages. Not any whimsical question. Questions with such a profound logic. And by trying to get the answers for this question, we are very much inspired that how this Bhagavatam is very relevant to the current day. Okay, so we just remember the first 10 verses of the chapter 7, which gives a very solid foundation of understanding of the philosophy of the Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein the verses clearly explains the position of the Supreme Lord, who is Krishna, how we are all his eternal servants, how the Lord and his various energies, the Lord is not impersonal, he is a person. What else we learned in the first 10 verses? Then also the explanation is given about the Atma Rama verse, right? In the Atma Rama verse, it is explained that how the transcendentalists are self-satisfied. Even those transcendentalists who are self-satisfied are eager to hear the message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that was the point. I'm going to move to the question. So these are the answers, but I just gave you a gist of it, okay? So you are able to relate to it. So question 8, chapter 8, questions 13 and 14. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators, who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Now going to the Kunti section. Now, in this one, we can find it is a question which is raised, which is kind of an appreciation on the Lord. And the answer we can see from Prabhupada's purpose itself. And then she also is asking a question. Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? So, I'm just going to read because there is no the answer for this. It is said in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of God, is beyond the range of the thinking power of the greatest philosopher. He is unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together. Yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the queen, who is playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and almightiness of the Lord. And thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. Remember this famous statement of Prabhupada? For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and in every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested than the men. Okay, now we will see for the question 14, why the Lord has. Are you going to leave from the Prabhupada's purport? The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavata Purana, therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition, and the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord, and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. Prabhupada, this is from the Prabhupada's purport. For the question that was raised, Prabhupada is elaborating the answer in his purport. Okay. Now we are moving to chapter 10. Question 15 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Shaunaka Rishi to Suta Goswami. Chapter 15. After killing his enemies who desired to usurp his rightful inheritance, how did the greatest of all religious men, Maharaja Yudhishthira, assisted by his brothers, rule his subjects? Surely he could not freely enjoy his kingdom with unrestricted consciousness. Right? Yudhishthira, Krishna himself was eager to know how they were ruling, and that is what the rishis were asking. The inquiry was important for Saunaka Rishi, who wanted to know about the behavior of Maharaj Yudhishthira when he was at ease to enjoy the kingdom. Okay. Suta Goswami gives his principal answer to question 15 in verse 2. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the maintainer of the world, became pleased after re-establishing Maharaj Yudhishthira in his own kingdom and after resorting the Kuru dynasty, which has been exhausted by the bamboo fire of anger. In the material world, the wrath of those who want to lord it over material nature interacts, and the fire of war takes place, exhausting the unwanted population. Such fires or wars take place, and the Lord has nothing to do with them. But because he wants to maintain the creation, he desires the mass of people to follow the right path of self-realization, which enables the living entities to enter into the kingdom of God. The Lord wants the suffering human beings to come back to him, and cease to suffer the threefold material pangs. The whole plan of creation is made in that way, and one who does not come to his senses suffers in the material world by pangs inflicted by the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord therefore wants his bona fide representative to rule the world. This is from the purport of the second verse I'm reading. Lord Sri Krishna descended to re-establish this sort of regime and to kill the unwanted persons who have nothing to do with this plan. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought according to the plan of the Lord, so that undesirable persons could get out of the world and get a peaceful kingdom under his devotee could be established. The Lord was therefore fully satisfied when King Yudhishthira was on the throne and the seedling of the dynasty of Kuru in the person of Maharaj Parikshit was saved. Okay, there are the question that was raised by the Rishi is Suta Goswami adds some more details to that question. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened, in the third verse, further it is being explained. Maharaj Yudhishthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in the matters of perfect knowledge because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water. So basically the question that was raised, so how was Yudhishthira ruling? How he was dealing with the prajas. So that was elaborated. During the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the clouds showered all the water that people needed, and the earth produced all the necessities of man in profusion. Due to its fatty milk bag and cheerful attitude, the cow used to moisten the grazing ground with milk. The rivers, oceans, hills, mountains, forests, creepers, and active drugs in every season paid their tax quota to the king in profusion. This is from text 5. Because of the kings having no enemy, the living beings were not at any time disturbed by mental agonies, diseases, or excessive heat or cold. Text 6. Now, text 7. Sri Hari, Lord Sri Krishna, decided at Hastinapura for a few months to pacify his relatives and please his own sister Subhadra. That is from text 7. Let me say. Okay. Now, chapter 12. There are two questions here. Question 16 and 17. Question 16 of Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Shaunaka of Suta Goswami. It is about the glorious birth and death of Maharaj Parikshit. Shaunaka asks it in two parts. Question 16, part 1. How was the great Emperor Parikshit, who was a highly intelligent and great devotee, born in that womb? Question 16, part 2. How did his death take place and what did he achieve after his death? There is an elaboration. So the elaboration was given how Parikshit was born, how Parikshit was protected in the womb. That was already discussed in the Ashwatthama section. And so while answering the question 16, there is also a point that is being raised, which leads to question 17. As Suta answers question 16, he relates a question by Maharaj Yudhishthira to the Brahmanas conducting the birth ceremony of Maharaj Parikshit. This question 17 of Srimad Bhagavatam is answered within the answer to question 16. So I told you before, sometimes what happens? In the next question, the answer to the previous question is also covered. For example, where did we see that?
Vyasa.
Yes, correct. In the Vyasa Vyasa, when he raised the question, so how are you feeling after having compiled all these literatures? Are you satisfied? While Vyasadev is raising the question that I'm not satisfied. So can you please figure out why I'm not satisfied? So in that question, the answer itself is there are some questions like that. Okay. This question 17 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is answered within the answer to question 16. Question 17. Will Parikshit become as saintly a king, as pious in his very name, and as famous and glorified in his achievements as others who appeared in this great royal family? This is from text 18. The second part of the question 16 regarding Parikshit's death is specifically answered in verses 27 and 28. That answer is philosophically summarized thus by Srila Prabhupada. So that I'm going to read. Maharaj Parikshit, being especially attached to the Lord from the beginning of his body in the womb of his mother, was continuously under the shelter of the Lord, and the so-called warning of his death within 7 days from the date of the curse by the Brahmana's son was a boon to him to enable him to prepare himself to go back home, back to Godhead. Since he was always protected by the Lord, he could have avoided the effect of such a curse by the grace of the Lord, but he did not take such undue advantage for nothing. Rather, he made the best use of a bad bargain. For 7 days continuously, he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source, and thus he got shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord by that opportunity. Chapter 13. Questions 18 and 19. Question 18 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Maharaj Yudhishthira of Vidura. It is a question about Vidura's welfare and his travels to holy places, particularly Dwaraka. So the question has 3 parts. So do you recollect what are those questions? It's easily you can remember. Easily you can remember those questions. The very famous discussion Yudhishthira had with Vidura. Few questions he asked.
What pilgrimage you went?
Yeah, where did you go? What were the places you went?
And how you maintain yourself?
Yeah, how did you maintain yourself? Correct. And then he also asked, what else he asked? Because I wanted to
You go to
almost.
Dwarka, how they are.
Yeah, when you went to Dwaraka, so what did you find? What happened? Whom did you meet? How were our relatives like that? Anything else you remember? There's one more question he asked. I'll give you a hint. Did he ask something about Dhritarashtra? Dhritarashtra, Gandhari. So there was also a discussion, right? That why did they suddenly disappear? Why? Very quickly they disappeared. So that was also a question. Okay, we will see those. Question 18, part 1. Maharaj Yudhishthira said, my uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson. This is from the text 8. Part 2. While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service? Then, question 18, part 3. My uncle, you must have visited Dwaraka in that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes? Okay. So, question 19 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Yudhishthira of Sanjaya. So, it covers verses 32 to 34. Here he asks that question. This is what I was saying about. Yudhishthira wishes to know, question 19, Yudhishthira wishes to know why his uncles Vidura and Dhritarashtra and his aunt Gandhari suddenly vacated Hastinapura. Sanjaya was unable to answer. Narada Muni appeared there. Yudhishthira put his question before the sage. In verses 41 to 59, Narada answers question 19. He reveals that Vidura had accompanied Dhritarashtra and his wife Gandhari to a holy place. There, in most probably 5 days, they would depart from this world by mystic yoga, after which Vidura would go his own way in search of perfectional instruction in Krishna consciousness. Right? In this way, Narada Muni also hinted at King Yudhishthira's own impending departure from this world. The philosophical significance of Narada's answer follows in 3 parts, summarized from Srila Prabhupada's purpose as indicated. Okay, I'll just go through that. This is an interesting one because this is a very nice application that we can have in our life. One should use his intelligence to seek liberation, not for seeking happiness or avoiding distress, for the Lord only can free one from the distress that is coming from karma. Therefore, no one can be actually dependent on us. Rather, they are dependent on the Lord. And by depending on the Lord, And following the regulations of Krishna consciousness, one's sufferings can gradually be mitigated. So we should not think that, I am the protector, without me, how you will survive. I just was speaking with one of my relatives a week back. So he sent me a message that, I am there for my granddaughter. So this was a message he sent. He's already 54 years old. So he's elder to me. He's kind of my brother. So it was a little difficult for me to, as Vidura was giving a strong verdict. Well, I couldn't push him to that extent, but he was so much attached to his granddaughter, not thinking that actually he's thinking that without me, my granddaughter cannot survive. But that's the point that Prabhupada in those purposes is trying to convey the point that actually everyone is dependent on the Lord. But if they could just revive that dependency on the Lord, then everything will be perfect. But when we are in illusion, we think that without me, he cannot survive, she cannot survive, others cannot survive. So that's the foolishness. Okay, so that's a nice point Prabhupada is pointing out here, and there's a great lesson for us to learn. One should look to the mission of the Lord, which is to remove the harassment of the devotees and mass of people by demoniac and to reclaim the fallen souls. And one should not be disturbed with the affairs of so-called happiness and distress. So, if a devotee has got a mission, the mission is to save the mass of people from being in ignorance, and then save them from the onslaught of the demoniac attackers. Okay. Third, although the purpose of practicing the sitting postures in yoga is to become free from the modes, this freedom is most easily accomplished by engaging the senses in Krishna's service, wherein one can get free from the modes. This will occur when one practices devotional service without offending Vaishnavas, associates with potent sadhus, is pious and follows the footsteps of Narada Muni. This is an amazing theme. This particular theme of no need to engage in other yoga systems, but take up the process of devotional service, engage in the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam, don't offend the Vaishnavas, don't engage in any kind of offenses in the process of devotional service. If we perform this, then the result will be, because the sadhus are very potent, the devotional service is very potent. If you follow the footsteps of these great Mahajanas, then the result is assured. We will be able to get the mercy of the Lord. We will be able to be fully satisfied. So this particular thing, what we are discussing, you can see consistent throughout the Bhagavatam. You can see right there in the second canto, first chapter also. This is again and again repeated. Because in the first canto, in the second canto, first chapter, there are so many different methodologies of theism explained there. There's a process of pantheism, there's a process of mystic yoga, there is a process of worshipping of the Virat Rupa. But then again, these are all beginning stages. From all these things has to culminate in pure devotional service. So Prabhupada says that why this indirect process? Take up the direct process, which we heard also in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 12, right? And also elsewhere in other places also. The direct process of bhakti and then indirect process of karma, jnana, other yoga, and then gradually coming to the process of bhakti. Okay. Question 20 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Yudhishthira of Arjuna. There are 3 parts. Question 20, part 1. Since Arjuna had come from Dwaraka, Yudhishthira asked for the welfare of Lord Krishna, his family and the Yadu dynasty. Receiving no answer from Arjuna, Yudhishthira then anxiously inquired about his brother's welfare. In this section, beginning with verse 39, the king expresses concern that his brother's loss of luster may be due to discrepancies in the execution of his Kshatriya duties. Question 20, part 3. Finally, Yudhishthira asked, or is it that you are feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Okay. So the philosophical significance, I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to go further. So the answers for those questions are in the next chapter. The essence of Arjuna's answer to question 20 and Sutta Goswami's comment on his answer in 7 parts are derived from the Bhakti-vaibhava purports. Arjuna is a dear friend of Sri Krishna. Krishna wonderfully reciprocates with Arjuna in power and glory, which is caused by Arjuna's dependence on Krishna. This is from the first purport to the 6th purport. Arjuna gives an example of the loving reciprocation between Arjuna and Krishna in fraternal rasa. So he is expressing why Arjuna is feeling that separation, why Arjuna has lost his luster. So he is expressing his feelings actually. Arjuna gives examples of the loving reciprocation between Arjuna and Krishna in fraternal rasa. Such feelings of pure devotees with Krishna are fully satisfying. According to his plan, the Lord arranges for the give and take of such dealings with his associates in the course of his pastimes. Maya is the condition of illusory separation from Krishna. It is completely different from the loving ecstatic separation from that Arjuna felt in chapter 15. One become free of Maya through association of devotees and by remembering the Lord's instructions, by chanting, reading the scriptures, etc. Because Krishna is eternally present, one can even become liberated from illusion simply by understanding Krishna's birth and activities. So the whole entire explanation of what Arjuna went through is summarized in this chapter. At least at the end of one's life, one should detach himself from all material dependencies and designations and leave home to fix his mind in incessantly thinking of Krishna. So this is an important point. Why all this separation? This separation, and then one after other, Bhishma's disappearance, and then we have disappearance of each and every Pandava, Yudhishthira's disappearance, then Vidura's disappearance, Gandhari's disappearance. Every disappearance it's being discussed. What is it hinting us to?
Detach.
Yeah, we have to detach. We have to leave also one day this world. So that was the whole discussion. So, but one must begin training and live purely in one's life to attain success at the time of death by fixing one's mind in Krishna and going back to Godhead. If one can master this art and attain the same result of going back to Godhead while still within this body. Okay. Chapter 16 deals with questions 21 and 22. Question 21 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Shaunaka of Suta Goswami. Question 21. Why did Maharaja Parikshit simply punish but not kill the personality of Kali, since he was the lowest of the Shudras, having dressed as a king and having struck a cow on the leg? Any quick answer for this question? We discussed so much about it. Quick short answer. Can someone give? Why did he not kill?
Because he surrendered.
Yes, that's a point. Because even a normal person, when somebody surrenders, he tries to forgive him. And a personality like Parikshit Maharaj is a great personality. When he surrendered, he did not kill him, but rather he gave punishments. Okay. Question 22 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by the bull Dharma to his wife the cow. After making a chain of inquiries about the welfare of the cow that links together many anomalies of the age of Kali, the bull requests, please inform me the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adorned even by the demigods. The cow, Bhumi, answers question 22 in verses 25 to 35. So, I'm not going to get into that, so you all know what has happened. Specifically, how the cow is citing answers, and it gives whole explanation, of Krishna's great qualities, and how the dharma is being mishandled, and how the earth has become a burden, and all those answers being elaborated. I'm just moving on. Okay, we already discussed the gist of why Parikshit did not kill, so I'm also not going to discuss that. I'm going to move to question 23 and 24. Okay. Question 23 of the Srimad Bhagavatam is asked by Maharaj Parikshit to the personality of Kali. Question 22 was asked and answered in the previous chapter. Question 23. King Parikshit asked Kali to identify himself, then asked if he dared beat a cow and bull because Lord Krishna and Arjuna are out of sight. So that was the question, very famous question. Not waiting for a reply from Kali, Parikshit then asked the bull, question 24 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. King Parikshit asked the bull to identify himself and asked if he is really a demigod. He asked who cut off 3 of the bull's legs. Okay. The bull replies, after praising Parikshit, the bull declined to say that he was and who had cut his 3 legs, pleading that different philosophies of causation conflicted one another. He left to the king to ascertain his identity and the cause of his suffering. So this whole famous discussion of the causation or the cause of suffering, we discussed elaborately. And so ultimately Parikshit himself is speaking. He himself is coming up with the solution. He knew that, okay, because of the influence of the Kali and because of the black man, you have been injured. And the influence of Kali with the time factor has caused the damage. So Parikshit himself answers for the question 23 and 24. Okay. So I'm not again going to get into the philosophical significance of those answers. It's going to take more time. Now we will move to chapter 18 for the question 25. Okay. The sages, eager to hear about Krishna, declared that those expert in tasting rasa find no end to the relish of the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. They therefore request Suta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaja Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa, Srila Sukadeva. So they're asking to elaborate whatever topics that was discussed by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit. So they're more eager for answers for that, because and you can see this answer will be elaborated in the rest of the Bhagavatam, because there will be so many elaborations given by Sukadeva Goswami, and that's what is we have written it here. Suta Goswami's answer to question 25 spans the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam. That the sages intended by their question to hear the whole of the Bhagavatam from Suta as it was heard by King Parikshit from Sukadeva Goswami is confirmed by this passage from the 14th purport. There is no end to such transcendental discourses. In mundane affairs, there is a law of satiation. You understand law of satiation? You get satisfied with something. You cannot go more than a certain limit. But in transcendence, there is no such satiation. Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadhanam. Right? Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadhanam Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Every step, this Anandam Buddhivardhanam. That's the part. Sorry, that's the right word to remember. Anandam Buddhivardhanam. Vardhanam. It just expands. This transcendental bliss, it's continuously expanding. So, how this discourse of the Bhagavatam is also transcendental, it is ever expanding. And those who give oral reception, they like to hear more, and those who speak about it, they speak more, they hear more. There's a transcendental competition between the speaker and the hearer, because the Lord is unlimited. The bliss derived from hearing about the Lord is also unlimited. Okay. Since the Lord is transcendence and his attributes are transcendental, such discourses increase the receptive mood of the purified audience. You see, this is another amazing thing. So, when you discuss Krishna Katha, it's ever fresh. You don't feel it boring, because Krishna is ever fresh, and the subject is also ever fresh. Okay. Chapter 9, question 26-27. Okay, this is a very important question, because this question is the basis of the second chapter of the first chapter of the second canto. Okay. Please, after proper deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances. The above question was asked by Maharaj Parikshit, is the first of the two distinct inquiries voiced by him in verse 24, as is made evident in the purport to the verse. So please pay attention. In this verse, the king has placed two questions before the learned sages. The first question is, what is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? And the second question is, what is the specific duty of one who is to die very shortly? Out of the two, the question relating to the dying man is most important, because everyone is a dying man, either very shortly or after 100 years. The duration of life is immaterial, but the duty of a dying man is very important. Maharaja Parikshit placed these two questions before Shukadeva Goswami, also on his arrival, and practically the whole of the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from the second canto up to the last 12th canto, deals with these two questions. The conclusion arrived therefore is that the devotional service of the Lord Sri Krishna, as it is confirmed by the Lord himself in the last phases of the Bhagavad Gita, is the last word in relation to everyone's permanent duty in life. Maharaja Parikshit was already aware of this fact, but he wanted the great sages assembled there to unanimously give their verdict on his conviction, so that he might be able to go on with his confirmed duty without controversy. He has especially mentioned the word Shuddha, or perfectly correct. For transcendental realization or self-realization, many processes are recommended by various classes of philosophers. Some of them are first-class methods, and some of them are second or third-class methods. The first-class method demands that one give up all other methods and surrender into the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus be saved from all sins and their reactions. So this is the point. There are so many sages sitting there. Everybody, they are all having different sets of realizations. And we can see in the second canto, first chapter also, Sukadeva Goswami will be speaking about karma, he will be speaking about jnana. Why he is speaking about that? You may wonder, because Parikshit is a pure devotee. Parikshit is not some mixed devotee. Parikshit is not interested in any material things, but he is keeping the other audience in mind, and he is saying, okay, there are other methodologies. I will explain you other methodologies. By step, you follow those methodologies, how you can gradually make elevation. You can elevate yourself. keeping in mind he's answering all those things. Now, ultimately, we can see the conclusion. He just hits at the point that, okay, forget about everything. Actually, completely surrender to the Lord. Engage in pure devotional service. This is what is the topmost process. There is, and of this, the most important process is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing, giving Shravanam and Kirtanam. This forms as the pivot. Based with this, only all kinds of progress you can make. This will lead you to the Smarana. This will lead you to the absorption in the Supreme Lord. Okay. Now, question 27, verse 24 continued, but as expressed in verses 37 to 38. Now, you see, in the 19th chapter, at the beginning, this question is raised. And again, similar, I was also wondering when we were just reading, why, again, Parikshit is asking, Parikshit is very specific. At the beginning, he posed this question, okay? He posed this question, what a man should do who is about to die. So please, all the great sages assembled here, give me an answer like that. He has asked this question. Now, already there are discussion going on with the sages. The sages are thinking what to answer. So now, Shukadeva Goswami has already arrived. He has already arrived, he is already in the scene. And Parikshit now is just again directly, he poses this question. Because he was waiting for, already there might have been some responses here and there from others. Or he has given time for others. Or he also wants to express this to Shukadeva Goswami directly. So again the question is raised. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons and especially for one who is about to die. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. So he is asking both the things, what one should do and what one should not do. So it's always good to, when you explain some things, specifically in Kali Yuga, it is better to tell what not to do and what to do. Okay, because sometimes it's dangerous. For example, if you just say when you see green light, you cross the road. Okay, so only you know that when it is green light, you cross the road. But when there is a red light, if you do not know what to do, either you should stop or you should think what to do. You should ask questions. But if you just keep moving, because I was told only when the green light to move, and you may not have sufficient understanding. So it's always, that's why you have do's and don'ts. Both are there. Both better to know both the things. So for the benefit of the conditioned souls, Parikshit is asking both the questions: what should not be done and what should be done. Is it clear? O trustworthy Brahmanas, I now ask you about my immediate duty. Please, after deliberation, tell me of the unalloyed duty of everyone in all circumstances and specifically of those who are just about to die. However, because Parikshit receives no answer from the sages, so that's what we discussed, who take to discussing among themselves the questions of verse 24 until Shukadeva himself arrives. In verses 37 to 38, the king repeats his two questions directly to Shukadeva Goswami. The first question, as he phrases it in verses 37 to 38, remains essentially unchanged. What is the duty of everyone in all circumstances? Yet, it is undeniable that he expresses his second question more elaborately the next time around, though the essential point remains the same. What is the specific duty of one who is about to die? Very shortly. Note, though, that he strengthens the second question with requests for additional details about what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. Okay. Srila Shukadeva Goswami begins his answer in Canto 2. His answer fits both questions. The one Parikshit asked the sages and the one he asked Shukadeva. He completes the answer at the end of the second chapter of the second canto. Ultimately, however, as Srila Prabhupada confirms in his purport to verse 24, his answer spans the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam up to the glorious departure of Maharaj Parikshit from this world. Okay, I'll just stop here. So these are also, totally we had, how many questions? We had 27 questions in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.